Hello and welcome to the Red Bull Ring in Austria for round 13 of the MotoGP World Championship. The Styrian Hills have seen some epic battles since MotoGP's return in 2016, and this year is sure to be absolutely no different, with a title chase that is closing in by the week. I'm Amy Reynolds and I'm joined by Simon Crafar. And Simon, this circuit, this Red Bull Ring circuit, has been well known as being a real horsepower track, but there has been a change to the layout. There's been a chicane added just after turn 1, just ahead of turn 3. You were actually out there on track earlier on a bike, breaking it down. Just start us off by explaining why that chicane has been added.
Well, yeah, why it's added, I think everyone will remember the big accident we had here a couple of years ago. And basically they're trying to take away the big danger of, look, anywhere you have the fastest section of a track going to the very slowest corner, you've got a danger because, you know, bikes going slow and a lot of fast bikes approaching, you know. So they've taken that away by putting in the chicane we're seeing on the screen there now. And I thought that it would, well, basically see the straight after the chicane,
yeah,
you barely get to 4th now instead of flat out in 6th gear, you know. And so they've slowed that, both changed the angle and slowed the approach. So again, looking at the chicane we're seeing on the screen, I only saw it here and believed it looked a bit like Aragon, turn 14, 15 onto the back straight. And I thought, oh, you know, that would be cool, you know. Yeah. Aragon's probably 2nd and then dropping to 1st and getting a good exit. This is more the other way around. I took the advantage to have a ride this morning on a BMW 1000, and it was kind of between 1st and 2nd on the entry, and you could run 2nd on the exit, but yeah, that gives you an idea of the speed. It's slower than I imagined. And what else were you thinking about? Like, it's going to take away the danger, which is going to do that job. It's kind of damaged the flow a little bit there. But a lot of people have been saying to me, now with a lower top speed, because they're not even going to be able to use the old 6th gear anywhere here now. Yeah. Front straight will be the fastest. I think the big thing is people wanted to know, is it going to take it away from being a horsepower track, maybe
so
Ducati
track, more recently KTM?
Exactly, the V4s, really. Is it going to make it better for the Japanese bikes? And I, after riding it, think no, because really it's adding another hard braking and hard acceleration from a low speed. And I think that's where, especially the Ducati, is strong, really good on the brakes, but the hard acceleration areas, the Japanese bikes, you know, the teams that run them, they know they lose between 2 and 3 tenths on the slow corner of the hard acceleration. So my belief is no, it's not going to help the inline fours. It's going to make it even one step more the opposite direction. Sorry, my opinion. Let's see what happens.
Interesting. A lot of work for the team to do tomorrow for sure in FP1, because I'm guessing there'll be all sorts of changes like gearing changes and things like that in terms of setup. So lots for you to look out for in FP1 tomorrow. The other thing that we are very much accustomed to here in Austria is the unpredictable nature of the weather. And we've already had a little bit of a preview as to what is in store earlier today. Thunderstorms and rain forecast over the weekend. Simon, how much does that change your approach to the weekend as a team?
Well, more than the chicane, the weather is more of a leveler, because you know, when the conditions change, it's much more in the rider's hands, you know, how the team handle it, the decisions they make, and how quickly the rider gets a good feel and confidence, and that makes a bigger difference than anything, you know, out on track. Meaning you can have less horsepower, and it doesn't matter what bike, if you've got confidence and make the right decisions tire-wise, that's the biggest thing. And it makes it exciting, you know. It's not fun for the teams and riders to have to manage all that, but it makes it more exciting for us and often a more level playing field.
We've had a real mixed bag when it comes to races here over the years, but one of the standout ones for me, Brad Binder, 2021, race 2, 3 laps to go. We had a huge deluge, and I mean, if there was ever a rider that fit the bill of fortune favours the brave, that ride from Brad Binder to one of KTM's victories here really summarised that. And like, who are we to call? Like, it could happen again this weekend. So Brad Binder fans, hold on. Anyway, back to things that are going on inside the paddock this weekend. Earlier today, Marquez has returned. And nice to see him back. Obviously not riding the bike this weekend, but was here to have some chats with the team and also talk to the press. Not really much news other than that interview he gave a few weeks ago in terms of his return. He is hoping that potentially there could be a race for him in 2022, but that maybe really rests upon a big doctor's check he's got coming up later on next week. But Simon, how critical do you think it is for Honda to see him back on a bike and racing this year for their future?
Very. The way I see it is that all decisions are being made, and have been made, aiming at next year's title fight, so, and you work back from that. He's got to be on the bike enough to be ready to go racing at the beginning of the season, and I mean testing and racing, and then you step back a bit further, and it'd be great to have some direction from him on the 23 machine, which really starts Misano. Traditionally we see the first signs of the 23 bikes at the Misano test, the days after Misano race. So shortly after there, you'd hope that Mark would get to ride it, somewhere. Yeah. And I mean, you can only do the official tests, but that's the first opportunity. And then end of season, obviously, he's really got to be on the bike to give them some direction for then pre-season tests, which are not at Qatar this year. They'll be at Portimao. So pre-season test at Portimao, you really need him on the bike, so because that's the last sort of chances you can make, get information to make changes for the start of the season. So my opinion is all decisions have been made, like when to have the operation and how time it's going to take to recover, then to be able to test, give them some direction, then go racing for next year's championship. That's how I see it.
Well, I'm sure we'll hear more news about Marc Marquez and his return, hopefully next time out, next race in Misano. But Silverstone was actually a really, really good scene setter in terms of how we're going into the second part of the season. 22 points currently between reigning world champion Fabio Quartararo and Espargaro for Aprilia. However, neither finished on the podium. Meanwhile, winner of that British Grand Prix race, Pecco Bagnaia, has really brought himself back into the title hunt. He's now 49 points behind Fabio Quartararo. And Simon, he's won 4 out of the last 7 races. It is not beyond the realms of possibility right now that he could be vying once again for this year's title. He could be crowned world champion the way things are going. Yep,
completely. And if you look back over the season, for example, Le Mans, he was looking like winning there, and threw it away. And he did that a couple of times. So he's had the form to do it, and now he's really showing it, the main thing I want to point out is the same thing as I previously have, that this championship, how it is, it's not the championship, but our sport is quite cruel, and that these guys ride on the edge everywhere to be able to lead, or fight for the lead, literally on the edge. So the chance of something happening, meaning as simple as his main opposition, Pecco's main opposition falling and losing that buffer, most of that buffer, is very high. So there's a big chance that it comes down to a real good fight between 2 or even the 3 guys at the end of the season. The good thing for us is it's been closing up. Yeah. For us viewers, it's been closing up championship-wise. Pecco's been on form, but I've got to say, so's Aleix. That machine and his riding lately have really astounded me and a lot of people, and he's right in the fight. If he can keep his head how he has all season, he's right in there with a big chance as well.
But if you were Fabio right now, with the circuits that are coming up, who would you be more worried about, Aleix or Pecco?
Yeah, good. I've got to go back and say that the last two races, Fabio hasn't secured the points he'd have been hoping to, because they're two big ones for Yamaha and him. That's Assen and Silverstone, and they didn't play out right for him. And now I'm going to ask the team manager about that tomorrow, first opportunity. And now we're coming into ones that, I mean, if you think of not so much Misano, but here in Austria, and then jump over Misano to Aragon, they're traditionally bad for Fabio and Yamaha, so they have to be worried. The thing is, you're saying who would you worry about? Both those V4 guys I would be worried about going into these races, but really the main thing that I know Fabio would be telling himself and the team, it's not about worrying about them. It's worrying about what you're doing, and so just focus on that and get as many points as you can. That's the problem for your opposition, you know. So really, yeah, you can daydream about worrying about who, wonder who, but the big thing is focus on your job, get the points, and that'll damage their championship.
In regards to Aleix Espargaro, obviously he raced in Silverstone, very much battered and bruised after a really horrible high side for him in FP4. It was also later discovered that he'd actually fractured that right heel. Is he going to be back in podium contention this weekend from a physical point of view? Yes,
I would say, yeah. I don't hesitate to say that, because what he did was pretty cool.
I mean, this is there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a horrible. I've experienced this a few times where you go up, land on your back, and your legs go slap, you know, with a lot of speed. You watch the heels go slap into the road, and that hurts for a long time. But as far as riding the bike goes, he rode the race. He did a pretty good job, considering what he'd been through. And if he did that last weekend, I think the only doubts I have is mentally, meaning not physically. I think it is how it affected him, you know, meaning that is the biggest danger for riders in that position. Because physically, I'm positive he can get on here in Austria and challenge. It's not a very physical track, believe it or not. It's a lot of braking and accelerating, but there's not fast change of direction like Mugello, for example, that wear these guys out, and you need a lot of strength. And he's fast. He was good and already straight away, so I don't doubt that he can do it. I just hope that it hasn't put any doubts in his mind, you know.
Well, Aprilia still had one man on the podium in Silverstone. Maverick Vinales is really on an upward trajectory. But this weekend marks a real full circle moment for Maverick, because it was here 1 year ago where both him and Yamaha decided to end their relationship. But to achieve what he has done in a year, essentially starting from perhaps feeling the lowest he's ever felt to a podium 1 weekend ago.
And I don't doubt that a year ago with the Yamaha blow-up, that it was close to career ending, you know, especially in MotoGP. It was big. And
well, we all wondered who would give him a chance.
Yeah, and that's why I'm glad we're seeing Aprilia on screen now, because they did give him a massive opportunity, and they've treated him like Maverick needs to be treated, you know, and they are reaping the rewards, and good on them, you know, because not a lot of people would have gone to the trouble, committed to him, be so loyal, and like I said, treat him how he needs to be treated to get the confidence back. And I was saying to you earlier that until Silverstone, I was saying the bike is there. He's got the machinery good enough to do the job. He's got the ability. I have no doubt about that. He's proven it a lot of times. Is he hungry?
Yeah.
And that you need the hunger to force one of these bikes onto the podium, because you've got to risk your body, you know, you really do. And he rammed those words back into my mouth at Silverstone.
Did
I was
he?
really, well, meaning by doing what he did at Silverstone.
Yeah.
I'm really pleased, you know, because I was doubting, I was wondering, and magic job from him, Silverstone. He showed the hunger I was hoping he still had.
Well, I think in terms of positions, it's been 4, 3, 2. Is one next? We'll have to wait and see on Sunday, but we're keeping our fingers crossed for you, Maverick.
Got to throw something in about him. The
Go for it.
bike is good. It's not
Yeah.
far off the Ducati, you know, speed-wise, and he's very small.
Yeah.
And this all that helps, you know, on those accelerations here. There's lots of them.
I really wanted also to pick up on our final podium man in Silverstone, Jack Miller, because there were a couple of races earlier this season where he went a little bit quiet, but it really feels as though from Germany onwards, he's back in form. You mentioned to me earlier it was actually something in the Barcelona test that they found, and I wondered if you could just explain that a little bit more.
Yeah, I first saw it in Germany, and I first saw him with the braking, especially confidence. That was visible how good he was on the brakes after that, and I looked at his bike and noticed that bit of geometry change because I got used to seeing his bike a certain way and how different it was to Pecco's and a couple others. And in general, there's a little bit less weight on the front, both rider position-wise and geometry-wise, and that explains why he's really improved on the brakes, but he hasn't lost in other areas, you know, so just in a good step there. And I felt that Jack could be back now that he's found that. Super sad that he didn't find it earlier because he might have stayed in red, you know.
Yeah.
Meaning it might not have been the end of his tour with Ducati. But I really do believe that he's got the potential. I always have. It was disappointing he didn't get to show it before now, meaning the consistency, you know. And I think he's here. I've said it a couple of times, to the end of the season. I really do. I think he's going to be in the battle at pretty much every race.
And that is going to be so crucial to Pecco's bid and
be.
Ducati's bid for chasing that title. And also, equally, we can say the same thing about Aleix with Maverick. Maverick now coming back into form.
Mm-hmm.
It really then begs the question to Yamaha about you need that second rider. You need that other guy, especially for teams, championships, manufacturers, adding those points, being up there. Jack does an amazing job at holding riders behind him. You watch him in races and he gives them a real tough time.
It's hard to pass anyone on a Ducati,
Yeah.
you know. They stop well and accelerate well. But it doesn't always play out that a rider can help, but you're right in that Jack, his relationship with Pecco is
So
very
tight,
good,
yeah.
and you'd fully expect him, if he's in the position to help, that he would. I agree with that. And yeah, Fabio's out there on his own. It's been quite obvious all year, but the guy Fabio is fantastic. So I think he's gonna put up a fight. He's been awesome all year as well. So
That's just reminded me, not Fabio, of something else I was going to ask you. This new Ducati Aero that we saw in Silverstone that stole a lot of the early headlines in terms of from a tech point of view. Will we see it out there again this weekend, do you think?
Definitely,
That's here
yeah.
to stay.
yeah, well, so we've gone from 21 Aero on the Ducati to 22 Aero, which was a big change, like a lot smaller fairing, and all the riders say lots better, changing direction. It's not so heavy, you know,
Yeah.
probably less downforce, and which makes them heavy to change direction. And a lot of the riders saying it helped physically, you know, not get so tired as well. Then, the Grassini bikes have been on someone else in there. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
No, the two Grassini bikes, but also young Bezecchi.
Oh, yeah.
So they're all getting upgrades, but they're leaping the 22, going straight to 20. Well, sorry, the second version. You know, that's just turned up at Silverstone. So because you only get one upgrade.
Yeah.
So they're, instead of getting the 2 steps, they're leaping, and so for sure they're going to want that new one, and we're going to see more of it.
Well, this really is the home of KTM, and we do believe that there should be an announcement from Pit Vira at some point this weekend in regards to their Tech 3 team. Pol Espargaro has been heavily linked to moving back to KTM, Simon. I just wondered, it'd be nice to finish off on, it's been a tough couple of years at Honda for Pol, and he's one of those characters that you really would like to see the smile back on his face. Do you think a return back to a bike that, okay, is somewhat probably changed in the 2 years since he's ridden it, but do you think that will perhaps also see a return to form?
I didn't know this one was coming, but I'm glad you asked.
I'm so sorry.
No, I don't mind at all. I'm glad you asked because, look, just to summarise quickly, I really thought Pol had the hunger and I do believe I thought he'd be on the podium even from the very first race at Qatar. I was completely wrong. But I put it down to him being on another V4 that's not so easy to ride in general, you know, and from the outside. And then his hunger, you know, he was really determined to do something on the Repsol Honda, which for a Spanish rider is kind of like the dream job, you know. I think that Pol has just hit that job, the dream job, at the wrong time. Right at Honda's low, you know. And it really is a low point in history even. And so I feel a bit sorry for Pol that that's happened, you know. And now he's going back to KTM, more than likely, that's what it looks like. And it's almost like coming home a bit. The guys there love him. They told me that when he was leaving to go to Honda. And the bikes would have got better, the KTM, would have taken a step forward. But the big thing is his timing right? Because I know KTM are fighting to make the right bike for 23. And if that happens, and you know, a lot of it's around aero these days, and they have the resources, you know, there's F1 links there, and to really make a difference. And maybe Pol's timed it, well, not right to get on the Honda, but timed it right to get on the KTM.
I think you're absolutely spot on. KTM are a manufacturer that carry with them a lot of pride, and they definitely do absolutely everything to do a top job. But we are heading over very, very shortly to our opening press conference with Matt Burt. Simon, thank you so much for the company.
Welcome.
And all of the contributions. And you'll catch both of us later on this weekend.